Brady and Bruno chew my hand. We're live. Excuse me. Takes out of me every time. 8:10, a little bit late. But okay, hopefully everybody's doing good. Hopefully you guys are getting all your Christmas shopping done, and that's good. You should hopefully. It's just about time for the guys to go out and start doing some serious shopping. I think probably these next couple of days are when guys tend to go out and make it all happen. Okay. Now it's crunch time. The last 2 days before Christmas. We gotta go out and get it done. So I want to talk about intake manifolds, and specifically the genre of intake manifolds, the billet intake manifolds. The photo that I have up for the thumbnail is a very cool one from the guys at Wilson, who obviously know more than a thing or two about airflow, and that's very cool. And that one was for Hemi. Excuse me. But what I want to talk about is these kinds of billet intake manifolds in general, because let's face it, they're quite a bit more expensive than their either stock counterparts or even their cast counterparts. Just their cast intake manifolds that would be higher production volume compared to a billet intake manifold, which might be, or even like let's say fabricated ones. I think fabricated ones kind of would go between a cast manifold and then these billet pieces. Billet pieces would be maybe the highest level. Although I tend to think now maybe 3D printed stuff might squeeze in there somewhere. Would it be the top above all of these, or would it be somewhere in the middle? But in terms of the billet stuff, they have a lot of things going for them. The number one thing, and I think that this is why people tend to get confused about them or think that they're magic and they're wonderful, which they are. They look amazing. But that's why, is because they look amazing. So when you see anything machined, like if we take a look at a set of CNC ported cylinder heads, if you see a really good new cylinder head casting that's been CNC ported, airflow research heads, for instance, in any engine family, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, whatever, LS, whatever you're doing, if you get a set of CNC heads and they're done nicely, the whole port's done, the bowls are done, the chamber's done, all that stuff, you look at it, you're like, man, a lot of these things you would hate to even put on a motor. Good examples of that are or other examples, not just cylinder heads, but good examples of intake manifolds. I remember getting the first split cast intake manifold that we tested from the guys at Mast. And it was a CNC ported one. The split one allowed you to get in there and you could CNC all of that stuff. And it was, they look amazing. Like I said, they're cool. You're going, ooh, look at this. This is really, really cool. Putting your finger on the short turn radius in the ports and stuff for the cylinder heads. And those look amazing. And then when you multiply that by, okay, now let's do the outside of the thing too, in the terms of the intake manifold. So you would machine the inside, obviously, and then also the outside. And it looks like the whole intake manifold was whittled from one chunk of aluminum, which would be very, very difficult, quite honestly. And be even more expensive because it would have, the drop on that would be tremendous. And then how do you go in and get the inside of it without having some sort of removable lid or having it be a multi-piece section or whatever? But these intake manifolds are amazing looking. And I think that that's what has people either not look at all or overlook the fact that the mere fact that they look that great doesn't always mean that they perform well. Now, I would argue in favor of most of these intake manifolds that if they've gone to the trouble of doing a CNC program on a particular intake manifold that they've done from scratch, let's say, then I would hope that it's something that they would have tested and know that it's going to perform, at a higher level. Now, this gets us into the other thing. So they look amazing. There's no doubt about that. And for a lot of people, that's worth it. I mean, you open the hood and you see a shiny intake manifold. For a lot of people, that's enough. I mean, people go, "Oh man, yeah, look at that." And then particularly when you add a turbo or turbos to that combination, you're like, "Yeah, that looks amazing," and it makes 1,000 horsepower, 1,500, 2,000 horsepower, whatever the number is wherever you turn the boost up to, and it makes all this power. And then that way you could go, oh, it makes 2,000 horsepower That must be because of the intake manifold, because it looks so, it looks so amazing. So people look at it that way, and I would hope, like I said, and I give all these guys credit that they would have designed that. They would have put not just it looking great into the design, but also that it performs well into the design. Because if you're going to go to trouble to do all that and whittle away at something and have so much drop and have the thing be expensive, it also has to perform. In my mind, it is cool that it looks that good, but I wouldn't, and I probably couldn't, but I don't think other people would spend the money if it's just one dimensional, if it just looks amazing. Maybe there are guys that would do that, but it would be way better if it all looks great and also performs well. So do they have the design? Another thing to consider for some of these manifolds is strength. And I'm sure a lot of these billet manifolds are promoting that, hey, look, you have a composite plastic intake manifold, and then it will blow up or separate or whatever. Nitrous backfires, perfect example. That will definitely happen. But I've seen nitrous backfires also blow up cast aluminum manifolds. I know, because I've done that. It also blew up the motor, so you wouldn't expect the intake manifold to withstand that as well. So nitrous backfires are bad, but even just boost, you obviously don't want the amount of boost that you could provide to the motor if the rest of the motor is up to it in the tune and all that, be limited by an intake manifold. If that's the case, you don't want the manifold to separate if it has seams on it, if it's composite and it will balloon up or whatever. And we've seen those on some of the fabricated things too, where the thing is, there's so much surface area relative to its strength, and then they, what they do, the spider doing a push up on another spider. And so they have problems with that. The billet stuff, the way that they design its strength, they put the right angles in it and all that, and the right amount of material and the right type of material so that it doesn't do that. So they should have strength going for them. We know that they have looks going for them, and we hope that they have design going for them and performance being part of that design, because that would be obviously very important. But even with all of that, is that billet intake manifold right for your combination? So let's say it has all that. Let's say that, if we look at an LS, for instance, we could look at a Hemi or whatever, it doesn't matter. But if we look at a motor and go, okay, the factory intake manifold or your normal run-of-the-mill aftermarket intake manifold makes this amount of power, and it does in this RPM range. In this super BILLETY double throwdown manifold does very well, but does very well way up here. The question isn't whether the billet manifold is better than the other one, because that really can't be answered. It's like, I want the best manifold. Well, is that the best manifold? If you're looking at building a motor that you want to run from 0 RPM to 7,000 RPM, and this billet manifold really works good because it's a short runner design, because that would be much easier to do with a CNC machine, makes good power at 8,000 RPM, that design, even though it's superior and would make more power there, makes less power in the RPM range that you want to run it in. So no matter how cool it looks, no matter how strong it is, no matter how much power potential it actually has, which it has a lot, in the RPM range that you would be trying to run it at, it's just not going to work. Again, a lot of people might overlook that and go, yeah, look, I have this double throwdown manifold, and it's super awesome because it's chock full of BILLETY goodness. And for a lot of guys, that would be enough. But it would be nicer to have everything. And even if you have all of those things, if the design itself doesn't lend it to the proper RPM range where you're trying to run the motor at, all of those other things are not going to matter. If you put that kind of manifold on your sub 7,000 RPM turbo LS deal, and a factory truck or a Trailblazer SS or a fast manifold just kills it everywhere, that's just, it's, no matter how cool it looks, it's just not, it's, it doesn't have the performance, and nobody would want to say, yeah, this manifold's really good, except that a Trailblazer SS would, kick its tail. Nobody really wants to say that. So it's important when you're looking at that, accept all the BILLETY goodness, go, yeah, that looks amazing. It's really expensive, but it looks amazing. Set that aside for a second and then ask yourself, is that really the right manifold for what I'm trying to achieve? And the other thing that can happen with that is you can start with the manifold and go, I'm running this manifold because it's that cool. Now, what are all the other things that I need for this manifold to work with it so that it does all of the things that that manifold now can allow us to do? So then you put the big camshaft in it, you put the ported heads on it, you're going to run lots of RPM, you put the gearing in it, you put the stall converter in it, then you match everything else to the intake manifold. That's another way to go. And I'm sure that guys have done that and gone, the cart before the horse kind of thing. And it worked out just fine. Because let's face it, if you put a turbo on those kind of things, obviously good things are going to happen. Let's see what you guys have got going on. Billety goodness. Chock full of Billety goodness. You can also, not to be confused with carbon fiber goodness, because those are two different positions on the goodness scale. Excuse me. Should I add? Okay. Should I add other guy, meaning basically anything non-LS? Should I add other guy non-LS parts not offered anywhere else on my store? So basically what I'm asking is, would you guys like to see richardholderperformance.com? Right now we have a bunch of LS things, although the injectors, I would argue the injectors and the pumps could be used on lots of different things. You could use the Hemi Plus, fuel pumps that we have up there now. Those could be used for anything. You could use them for Hondas. You could use them for Subarus, Evos if you want, whatever, BMWs. That pump is used a lot out in the industry. And so now Jimmy has put up pump and injector sets. So a guy doing an LS can upgrade it with that. But both the injectors and the pumps could be used on other things. But we've been talking about, I have a couple of products that I want to bring to market that nobody else has right now, that nobody's done, because I haven't finished the design on them yet. They're new things. And who would you guys like to see things other than LS products on the store? So let me know. richardholderperformance.com.gov.org. Billety goodness. Jack, what's going on? Untrue. Sergeant, it's been a while since you've been here, hasn't it? Am I correct in that statement? Sean, what's going on? Agent Sleepyhead. Brad Douglas. Bridgeport Mill and aluminum. So if we have anybody here from Neil, you're from London or that area, right? From England? In London, in the UK, it's Happy Christmas, right? And not Merry Christmas. It's just different, right? I mean, same sentiment, and we all appreciate that, but it's just said differently, which I think is kind of cool. Bridgeport Mill and aluminum welder. Okay, stay on the nice list this Christmas by liking the video. Exactly, Brad. Which less than half of the people are doing. Crush Factory, you're here. Australia is in the house. Cliffhanger. Nice. Can't afford Billety goodness. Yep. Billety goodness is good. And there was much Billety goodness in the house. Have a holly jolly Christmas. Built manifolds with inspection windows can be made into classy garage art. Yeah, like I said, some of the things that you get and you unwrap them, you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to put them on. Especially for me, I don't want to put them on what is very obviously otherwise a junkyard LS motor, a grungy, grimy LS motor. If I spend the money, I'd only get a high RAM for big power on the top end. Anything else isn't worth it. Those do work well, and as lots of people have shown, you can make lots of power. Hashtag wrong manifold. That's right. I agree with nobody. Oh, nobody right up above you. I thought it was just a generalized statement, which is also cool. Super Billety throwdown. Serious stuff right there. That's right. Mirrored turbos are crazy expensive, but man, they are pretty. But doesn't VS Racing have inexpensive mirrored turbos though? I know Nelson has them, and those are cool and make a lot of power. And I'm sure that they're not wrecking yard guy cheap. But I thought that Viren has a set. The Steve Morse manifolds sure look nice. I'll stick with my truck intake until I can 3D print one. There you go. All this complex stuff, and I can't even get my own junk to work. What are you having trouble with, Tim? Richard, can you talk to your experience with what people look for or should look for in a road race cam versus drag race? For me, those are the same thing until you get at like the very highest level. A drag race cam would have a lot more aggressive load profiles because you care less about the longevity on a drag race setup. Drag race stuff would tend to have a lot more lift because you're looking to make a lot of drag racing power. So if you look at very, very high end stuff, like stuff that's making 1,000 horsepower NA for LS stuff, which is pretty high end stuff, those things would tend to be they have to be reasonably stable profiles, but not necessarily things that are going to make the springs last a long time. But in a road race one, the cam should be more stable and easier on the valve train because it has to last a long time, particularly if you're doing most road racing is going to be fairly long, unless you're talking about you could get away with more aggressive profiles if you were just doing like a time attack thing where you just went out and ran 1 lap or 2 laps or whatever. But most road racing is on throttle and being used, way more often and for a much longer period of time than drag racing is. And so the drag racing stuff is, everybody wants it to last forever, but guys that are serious about drag racing don't mind changing springs and stuff. Those pumps speak all the languages. Gen 6 454 cams. So what, like Oldsmobile and Buick stuff? We appreciate what you do. Thank you very much. Well, right now, less than half of you appreciate it if we're going by the likes. If it's a small track with lots of turns, then put a truck Norris. If it's a bigger track with more top end, then put higher lift. For your store, I think you could do a cool package like Trick Flow has, a 450 horsepower package, but super richy, throttle body intake, cam, springs, heads, injectors, and all packages for the LS. Jimmy and I are actually talking about that. And the thing that I'm working on now or the things that we're looking at right now are cylinder heads. All of the other stuff is pretty easy. But we're trying to figure out a way to get an affordable cylinder head package. And right now I'm looking at the airflow research stuff, which is really good. So I want to test their Enforcer heads, their Enforcer LS heads. So we want to try those and compare those to a 799 head, a 706 head. And, we can take a look at that. They're not going to be what a ported set of heads is, but we're wondering if with the right cam, if we can get to some fairly high power level packages for a 5.3. A 450 horsepower package for a 5.3 really is just a camshaft and maybe an intake manifold. But the other things that we're talking about, like having one of the things that we're internally struggling with is if we put together a package that has heads, cam, intake, head gaskets, headsets, injectors, pump, all the things that you would really need, it's going to be very expensive. And I don't know that people are ready to spend a few $1,000s on stuff, particularly when you could just put a camshaft in and get 450 horsepower and springs. Small block Ford stuff on the store would be good. Personally, only add universal or very specific specialized parts. Otherwise, things can spiral out of control. They can, and that's why we are a BTR dealer, and that's why I don't have everything up on the store that we could get from BTR, because I don't want to have 5,000 SKUs. It's just more problematic. I definitely think you should add other guys' stuff, whatever you think will sell. Well, and that's the other thing that we're doing is, and I'm doing that personally, is I'm balancing, if it's a business, you obviously are in business, you want to try to make money, but at the same time, I want to bring to the industry things that are not there that I think make the industry better, that enrichen the industry. And the two things I want to bring are probably not going to be big sellers because of the markets that it's in, because of the engine families more than anything else. And because of it just has limited market, I think. But I think it's necessary, and I've wanted them for a long time. Question: could someone build up the intake ports on a 706 head to make them smaller to promote more low-end torque? Kind of the opposite of porting for big ends. I don't think you're going to do that with a 706 head. I haven't seen, for instance, when we take a 706 head and we put a ported 706 head on it, it makes more torque. It doesn't make less torque. Now, if you were talking about torque if you were building an industrial motor and spinning the motor at 1800 RPM, and that's the peak engine speed, then we could talk about doing specific things that might help that. And actually, the head porting wouldn't be one. I mean, it could be something that you could try, but it's not going to be very useful at 1800 RPM, nor would cam timing, other than going to a camshaft that's, more like a stock camshaft, is what you'd want for something like that for 1800 RPM. But then you would attack the areas that really have an effect there, like displacement and compression and rudder length. 5,000 or better for quality parts. Universal parts would be cool. I'd like to see you revisit some Hemi stuff with some head porting. Hard to find data on this. I have some, if you look at my Hemi book, I have some ported head tests on there, and I've run ported heads, but not any of the later stuff. All of the things that I did for that book were really before either they were out or before I had access to any of the later stuff. So I don't have any Apache or Eagle stuff, but I do have ported, 5.7 and 6.1 stuff. I do appreciate your work, Richard, because of you, I made a decision to upgrade my LS3. Those are good motors, right from from the factory. They're good motors, and even minor upgrades like a cam upgrade and springs on those goes a long way. Does an inline engine design make more torque than a V8? No, not of equal displacement. I don't think it does. I'd like to do a comparison between the 300-inch inline six-cylinder on the Ford and a 300-inch Ford V8, and I don't think that it does. I think that displacement is going to dictate that, not engine design. Any plans on more Gen 3 Hemi stuff? I don't have a Gen 3 Hemi right now to even test, but I do want to do more Hemi stuff. I'm going to try to do some stuff with the guys from Brian Tooley Racing who have done a bunch of stuff on the later Hemis. So the VVT stuff and the adjustable intake manifolds and the Apache headed stuff and the 6.4 stuff. So I want to go out there and do some testing with that stuff. What about selling bespoke custom 3D printed dry flow manifolds? So give me an example of what you're talking about. You mean like all of the factory EFI stuff already is? So you're doing a custom grind for your Buick 455 build? No, I have a cam for that already. I'll have to research your library. I haven't seen those videos yet. Yeah, there's lots of Hemi videos up on the channel, and then also the Hemi book that I have. So I'll show you the Hemi book. I think I've got a couple issues here on the B series. This one, I have a few of these if you're interested. How to build new Hemis. In fact, maybe I'll have Jimmy put a couple of those, because I think I have 6 or 8 of those left. Maybe we could put those up on the store if you guys are interested in that. I've been looking at doing something like that with the split type aftermarket manifolds. The plans on them are so huge, there's plenty of room to extend the runners up into them. Yeah, short runner manifolds, you can do that. I drew up a design for an insert that goes into a high ram, which I think would work really well. I've been looking at doing something like that. Diesel world is where inline engines shine over V8 diesels. How do you feel about Phytech Ultimate LS? Thumbs up or thumbs down? I've never run their stuff. Have you ever seen or tested yourself the David Vizard polyquad head work on 4-valve heads? Looks interesting, but not anyone else that claims they did it and it made power. No, I haven't seen. Does he have flow testing or something on a 4-valve motor? I haven't seen that on David's thing. Is the engine power channel coming back with you? I don't know what you mean. Coming back with me, sheet metal intakes. White Knuckle. Are you interested in the book? Is that what you said? Here, if you are, send me an email and we'll get you hooked up on something. Killer B16. Richard, what's your favorite engine? Whatever the next one I'm testing is always a favorite. You see where they're banning diesel engines in California? I haven't seen that. Matt, is Westech closing its doors? No, they condensed their. They moved out of one side of the two shops that they had, just all into one. Appreciate the time you take to talk with us, car guys. Need to vent. What's the giveaway? That's right. I was going to do a giveaway. I mentioned I wanted to give you guys an update on that. It won't happen obviously tonight, but you guys will know about it before everybody else. David wrote about the polyquad thing in one of his books. I don't know what the polyquad refers to. Yeah, White Knuckle. Yeah, send me a thing and we'll get you hooked up. That's just because he hasn't tested an Oldsmobile motor yet. I do want to test one. I'd love to test the 455 Olds. But I have to remove the intake manifold to swap engines on my Silverado, a 4.8 to 6.2. I think you could. Are you pulling the motor out? I think you could pull the motor out with the intake manifold on there. They ban diesels in California. Planes and military equipment are all these. Oh, are you? If they ban diesels in California, are you saying that planes and military equipment are all diesel? Yeah, Matt, I did see Tom sent me video of his slide valve stuff, and it's pretty cool. Have you ever had issues with torque boxes ripping out of a Fox Mustang? I'm about to weld up some angle iron to stiffen up. Yes, that's a good idea. Guys can do that. Usually it happens in drag racing. It's something that he wrote about in his head porting book. He showed a video of it, but nothing much more than showing it. One large and one small intake valve and exhaust. It's a pain to pull the motor on a truck with a truck intake manifold on there. Possible, but it sucks. Now, I would think that removing the hood would be the way to go there. And if you have to take the intake manifold off, that's really easy because you're gonna have to disconnect everything like the fuel lines and stuff and obviously all the connectors and everything. You're gonna have to take all that off anyway to pull the motor. So then pulling the intake manifold off is just that's just 10 5/16 bolts or 8 millimeters. That's just zip, 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 and the whole thing comes off. That's not something that would stop me from pulling the motor. I saw a poll on Facebook asking if we would like Engine Power Show back on YouTube. Ever been to Arizona? Rock and Roll Car Show, longest running show in the nation? I have not. Saw a poll on Facebook asking if we would like an Engine Power Show back on YouTube. Yeah, it would be cool if they did something on YouTube. Polyquad refers to staggering valve sizes on a 4-valve head. So, for example, one intake valve is bigger than the other, and the same for the exhaust. He claims it improves swirl. Okay. I think the thing to look at if you're talking about does it make more performance, is any manufacturer using it, or is any high-end 4-valve racing team using it? And inducing swirl, I would argue, is way more important for emissions and fuel mileage than it is for maximum power. West Build's torque box reinforcement kits are available at a decent price. Advanced Auto Stores closing in California. Some West Coast shops stocked up on what was left this morning. Something like 90% off. Wow. Jason, I do have a store. It's richardholdnerperformance.com. Battle box kits for 5-liter Foxes. Yeah, those have been around for a long time. My local Advanced Auto Parts store in Kansas is closing. What's a JCB load all, Neil? I'm not familiar with that. I got 2 pull 6.2s from my Denali and then pull the 4.8 from the Silverado. Okay. I have an LS1 intake on my 4th gen F body. Are there any aftermarket intakes under $1,000 that are better than the LS1 from 2 to 7,000 that will fit under my hood? Any sheet metal ones? Probably not sheet metal that are going to be better in that RPM range, but the cowl hood is a problem because obviously a truck is better than the LS1. The Trailblazer SS is better than that. Both the LS6 and the LS2 versions of the Dorman intakes are better than that. The Fast is better than that. I don't know what else would be. All of the other manifolds are going to be a trade-off. Sounds like an off-road forklift. That's kind of what I'm envisioning, Matt. Is just a forklift to lift it out. And we've done that at West Tech before because they have a forklift there. It's fun driving the forklift around. I remember when the boys came down, we got to cruise around on the forklift. It's been a bad year. Can you motivate me to get my stuff running? Tim, just one at a time, man. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Just make a list of one thing and go, okay, today I'm going to go get this done. I'm going to fix the door latch or whatever the thing is that I don't know what you're trying to do, but whatever it is, get something small done. Get something small done. Keep going like that. Does swirl help low end? I don't know. It would have to improve. It would have to improve airflow for that to happen. Some LS1 Camaros came with the LS6 intake manifold. Yeah, eventually they put the LS6 intake manifolds on everything. The LS1, the early LS1 manifolds are not good. Richard, glad to see you stream again. Wondering if you could say good luck to my dad, he's in a hospital bed. I'm sorry to hear that. So shout out to your dad. He's a great fan of yours, but can't type because he's loopy. Well, he's lucky if he's loopy, but I'm sad to hear that he's in the hospital. But shout out to him. What's up? Is that Maverick Hawk 77? Is that what your handle is? There's also a China knockoff of the Dorman, which looks like a knockoff of the Fast LSXRT. I have the Dorman truck manifold, which is not at all like a Fast, not in looks or performance. In fact, it's not even as good as the regular factory truck intake manifold is, I don't think. Those intakes are way overpriced. I've seen people on Marketplace selling used TBSS manifolds for $300. That's what I would get. Those are really good manifolds. It's farm thing, extendable boom type forklift, multifunction vehicle. There you go. Swap to digger, bucket, forks. Okay. Richard, loved your big block Ford horsepower videos. I'm currently using them as a guide for my build. Yeah, lots of good stuff there. I'd like to do more big block Ford stuff. I haven't done enough of that, particularly with Mark Sanchez there as a source, because he likes big block Fords. Maverick Hawk 77. Oh, gamer tag. Okay. Since the time that you were 6 years old. Yeah. My sons are both gamers. My rear had a real bad clatter. That's never good. Real bad chatter upon takeoff. It could be a loose pinion, but I found the torque boxes also tore out. Yeah, that happens. Wonder where Banks will go. He has government development projects. Why does he have to go somewhere? The other guy like the L28 Nissan. I do have one of those. I think I'm gonna try to reach out to Oliver and maybe see if he'll help me with that. How would you know what size turbos to put on your particular engine? I've never messed with turbochargers. I want to know if there's a reference chart or some resource. Yeah, you just ask us. If you just ask me tell me how much power you want to make, I'll tell you what turbo to put on it that will do that. For racing, I recall pro head porters hate swirl. Is there a trick to keeping turbos LS emissions legal? I don't know of any kits that are emissions legal. I don't know if you can do. I don't know if there's a loophole there for like that fits into the catback system. If you can do remote turbos and make them legal, I don't know if they were able to do that or not. Because you think if they're after the cats, like a catback setup is, that would be. But I think you would have to still get them certified for a specific application, like they do for blower kits and things like that. I think you'd have to do that. My latest project taught me that Molex CMC connector pins are a real pain to crimp correctly, very touchy. Crimp has to be near perfect. I had to do some electrical wiring. We have light up deer in our front yard for Christmas, and they were not lighting up anymore. So I did some checking to find out, is it the plug? No, it's not the plug. Is it individual plugs? Because there's 3 deer. You know, it's a family of deer because that's what you have to have for Christmas. Did the individual plugs? No, that's not it. And in line of the plug and the Y out to all the various deer is a selector switch that allows you to, select from them being on all the time and blinking and I don't know, lighting up and doing signs or whatever it does. And so that turned out to be the bad piece. So I bypassed that. I'm like, okay, yeah, all the deer worked individually when I found another deal. And so all that's fine. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to take apart the switch and see what's going on in there. Is there water in there? Is it corroded? Is it rusted? What's going on? And the hardware that they use are a triangle shape fastener. I'm like, I've seen that before, but I don't think I have any. And I certainly don't think I have any that are different size. I'm like, why won't this Phillips screwdriver work? Why won't a Torx work? Why won't any of these things that I normally have work? And so what I ended up doing is I just cut both ends of it off, took it off, crimped them all together. Hey, look, voila, it's on all the time, works fine, which is how we have it anyway. We don't have them twinkling or sending Morse code or, beam me up, Scotty, or any of that stuff. 800 horsepower LS L59 package, knee cam and turbo recommendation. Okay, 800 horsepower is really easy. So get my low buck truck cam and springs, which are on sale now. Get injectors. We have 80s and 1000 cc injectors, and then get a 1000 horsepower turbo. Get an S475, get a 7875. We will in the next month or two have turbos available, but I wouldn't wait for that. Just get something like that. And a VS Racing 7875 Gen 2 or next gen turbo will easily do that. There are some others that are smaller than that because they have better wheel designs that will also do that, but any of those will work. Gary has an online turbo size calculator. The problem with the Garrett stuff and the Matchbot for the Borg stuff is that they only tell you what their specific turbos are, which is, that's theirs. So they should be telling you that, which makes good financial sense for them. But it doesn't tell you generally what all the other things are out there. But there are lots of guys like me who have run lots of these turbos and know what they do and can recommend that. You show the 706 heads on LQ4 yield more power than 317s due to compression, even though the flow is worse. Would higher compression from different pistons with 318 exceed the 706s? Well, Elijah, what you should look at is they don't do it just because of compression. They're a better head. But if you look at what the 243 or 799 heads do compared to the 706 heads, the 706 heads make more power up to 5,000, and then the heads that flow more made more power on the top. And between the 706 heads that we tested and the 799 heads that we tested, there was only 2 or 2.5 cc's, which is almost nothing in compression. It's 0.2 or 2.5 of compression. So it's not very much. 2035 will be all electric. Oh man, I wish they were trying to knock off some BMW cams. $1,500 for a pair of cams is a hard pass. Yeah, those are not cheap. My Nissan 240SX drift car has 600 horsepower, KA24 DET, and I'm knocking on the door of all its potential. So I'm going to turbo LS swap it. And so my question is, a 600 horsepower K24, that's pretty cool. I'm going to turbo LS swap it. And so my question is, should I go all out and get a Denali 6.2 or 5.3? Well, either one of those, you don't need a 6.2. And I don't know how much power you're trying to make, but you can make more power with a 5.3 than you can with that 6.2, because that 6.2 is going to be not going to be an iron block. It's going to be an aluminum block. And so the 6.2 aluminum block is not as good as the 5.3 iron block or the 5.3 aluminum block. So ultimately, if you wanted to make all the power, you could do it better with those. But you could also make twice as much as your KA24 is making with a 5.3. So you're going to be able to make as much power as you want, as much power as any transmission that you want to afford is going to be able to take. Yeah, 900 is easy with a 5.3. A 5.3 with a mild cam, like my low buck truck camshaft, springs, injectors. A lot of guys don't even take them apart, but I'd put ring gap in it. I'd put head studs in it, and then a turbo, and 900 horsepower just comes with boost. It's really easy. 900 horsepower in mine, if you look up at the video that I have of that camshaft that we tested, came at 17 pounds. So it's 925. Five 362 LT motors have problems with direct injection systems for carbon buildup and pressure sensor. I'd go with the older style. Yeah, I would go with an LS and not an LT. Gen 3 LS or a Gen 4 LS, either one. Triangle shaped heads are on the smart car brake calipers. Try to stop people from doing stuff themselves. I know, I hate those specialty fasteners. I have a 4.3 Vortec V6 for my 05 Silverado. I'm going to try to blow through a Weber IDF carb, a T3 T4 hybrid from eBay. I'm going to push no more than 10 pounds. Will it work? You're going to probably have to enclose that carburetor to make it work. North Carolina actually feeds much of the U.S. Okay. Have you all tested 8.1 with the cam? Yeah, I have 8.1 videos up. We ran a turbo on it. We did a cam test on it. We did intake manifold on it. BNR will bring stuff in electric semis out to the outer states, and then diesel trucks will pick them up. Watch for diesel Tesla later on, or electric semi. What kind of work goes into balancing a motor? Let's say I slap Gen 4 rods in my Gen 3 block. Yeah, we need it balanced, right? Yes, those will be out of balance. was looking at your store earlier. I wish you had this stuff up a year ago when I bought all my stuff for my turbo build. I would have saved a lot of money. Next time, next build, right? Tesla needs bigger cams. They need a boosted pump on there. Boss bought a new AAA tow truck, 2020 flatbed. Wales feeds most of the UK with lamb, more sheep than people. That's good. I'm wanting to make 600 wheel horsepower at my big block Ford Fox body without having to get a massive hood. Do you think that the Torque 2 intake would get me there? 521 big block Ford with Kazi heads and a matching cam. I don't know about the Torque 2. I haven't compared that to something else. I have compared Torque 2s on other stuff, and it's not the intake that I would choose. I would choose a Victor Junior or Super Victor over that for power. .600 wheel horsepower is going to be 700 flywheel or more. I don't know if that manifold gets you there. I thought that Mark built a 429 for the owner of West Tech for a Kit Cobra that he had. And I thought that thing made like 600 with a 429. And it didn't have Kazi heads on it. So maybe you can get there. And I thought that he used a Torque too. HB tuners for Tesla's coming soon. There you go. There we go. Poll is showing 85% currently. Should I add other guys' parts? 85% are saying yes. The LY6 Gen 4 6 liter. Yeah, LY6 is Gen 4. Is a 6.2 any better or worse? Any reason to go 6.2 over Gen 4 6 liter? It depends on what you're trying to do. What are you trying to achieve? 900 horsepower aluminum 5.3. Yeah, you can do it with an iron 5.3 too. That's what 99% of the people do. They go get an LM7 or something like that from the wrecking yard. The aluminum ones are cool, harder to find, and usually more expensive. I got my 6.2 with a stage 3 cam for $3,500. LS swap a Tesla. Nick Rib is back. I saw the Big Bang Junkyard 351 magazine. How long do you think something like that would stay together if you kept the boost under control? I don't know at that power level. I don't know at 1,000 horsepower power level how long that would last. Probably would. Cousin of mine is not smart, let's say. I won't take my word for it that he shouldn't swap a 351 diesel into his 91 Camaro. He's going to try it and turbo it. He's going to be, that's definitely other guys. So it's cool. So it's cool if he's trying to get good fuel mileage with his 91 Camaro, but a turbo diesel is just not, he's 350 cubic inch turbo diesel. It's just not going to be very powerful. Jordan, you worked on your balancer problem. I think the balancer snout is recessing too far into the oil pump and pinching the gear because the extra space required for the double roller. So is your oil pump moved out? Is it past the what I would call the locating flange for the crank? Building a truck for drag racing. What's the actual limit of an iron block 6-liter with block fill and stuff like that? I don't know. I don't know what for a one run kind of thing. The McRib is mystery meat. Yeah, it's definitely questionable. Turbo diesel also probably understeer straight into a hedge. They're pretty hefty. Personally, if you have the motor apart, I'd put a single roller timing chain on it. I wouldn't. You don't need a double roller. Diesel engines are very heavy. They are. So are iron big blocks and iron FE motors. And I think an iron Hemi too. I'm pretty sure the iron Hemi is a lot. Cummins 6 or Duramax V8. Yeah, I mean, if you were trying to get, like I said, if your fuel mileage is your thing, a turbo diesel. But if I was trying to get fuel mileage, I wouldn't do that big diesel. I would do something else. Do a smaller one. Chat, let's hit 100 likes. Yeah, there's only 86 people here, only 62 likes. We've got 63 now. We're jumping up. I was thinking of going with an aluminum 5.3 for my competition drift car instead of the iron to save weight. I don't know. Drifting is not a timed race thing. So I don't know if the weight savings helps you at all. Maybe it does. Because if you're trying to get around the track as fast as you could, you wouldn't be spinning the tires. So I don't know what the style points versus the speed thing is. What do you think about dimpled pistons? I don't know. I've never seen a test that verifies what they do. I saw people on YouTube go get a Junkyard 5.3, put in their drag cars with turbos and say they never got the rings. That's fine. They can try that. Richard, you'd pick a Scion TC over an 05 GTO? Please, yes, I can cope with my poor decision making. I'm actually a Scion TC owner. I've owned one of those. I've never owned an 05 GTO. So I technically did pick the Scion over the GTO, although if they were both there, I think now I know which one I'd pick. I'll be watching for tomorrow's live stream. I'm sure this is about to wrap up for the night. Yeah, we got a few minutes left. I don't know what front rear bias is ideal for a drift car. I don't know either. I don't know if a mid-engine thing would be better, or most of the ones I see are LS swapped in the front, although I'm wondering if they do motor setback. The other thing I would be considered for motor setback there is so that when you smash the front end, you hit the wall a little bit, just a kiss, that you don't damage anything on the motor. You want high mileage, get a 5.3. E-Device on twin GT4788 T4 turbos based on the 500-inch big block. I'd have to look up those turbos. I'm not familiar with those. Mike is saying get some GT50 turbo wheels over the GT47 wheels or go G50. The first question I would ask is how much power are you trying to make? The GTO is also a 6-speed. Why would you want weight over the drive wheels if you're trying to drift it? What's your dream car? Yours would be an 87 GNX. Oh, or a Cyclone. Mine would be a McLaren F1, but I would want to turbocharge mine. High mileage 5.3, good for boost. The more miles, the better. The mileage doesn't affect that. The mileage doesn't add ring gap, so that's a common myth on an LS. It does on some motors, but not on an LS. We got 2 more minutes. How to build a new Hemi performance. How to build new Hemi performance on the dyno. That's such a terrible title. I didn't pick that. Try drifting an MR2. As an MR2 owner, they were a little oversteery, but they were fun. I had an early one. Mine was an 86. An 86, yeah. The GT47 peak efficiency on the turbine side is 73%. The G50 is 75% or more. So you just run a smaller AR. That's fine. I'm way less worried about that than I am about sizing the turbo for the desired power output before I would even think about turbine efficiency. Gordon Murray's a genius and also owns a Mark I Ford Escort. Nice. Have you used any Haltech ECUs? Yes, an MS. Oh no, not a Haltech yet. I have a Haltech Rebel, and I have another Haltech that we're going to be running a couple of other motors on too. Won't wait for drifting for the slide momentum. Without weight, you can't control it. Yeah, I agree, Neil. if Gordon was talking, I definitely would be listening. I just want to hear the stories. The tech stuff was great, but I would still just like to hear cool stories. The air changes the flow rate, but not the efficiency. Efficiency represents the ability of the turbine wheel to convert exhaust energy into kinetic rotational energy. Okay, but still big things and then little things. LSs have low tension rings. Everyone I've took apart had cross hatch cylinder. Yeah, you won't see any. There's no ring ridge at the top of a bore of even a motor that has 300,000 miles or more on it. They don't wear like that. The only thing that would wear really it would be the ring itself. I would be happy with the engine from a McLaren F1. Yeah, I mean now the NA motor is cool, but it really needs, it really needs twice that much power. I have a 91 MR2 System City because I'm busy with LS stuff. McLaren F1's worth more than insurance rules now. What does that mean? Does that mean they won't insure it? If you plot a GT47 versus GT50 on a big AR47 plus, okay. But forget either one of those turbos. So the question still stands: how much power do you want to make? And then we can work on getting him to make that amount of power. So it might not be either one of those turbos. So trying to argue about the thing that you're trying to argue about doesn't matter until we find out how much. What if he only wants to make 600 horsepower? Then we're not going to pick a pair of either one of those. Had an 85 Riviera factory roller 307. Okay, roller rocker, roller lifters. I was surprised I went to change the ticking lifter set of the lifters. A 307 from the factory. An 85 had a roller cam in it and had roller lifters and roller rockers from the factory. I never heard of that. You want 2,000 horsepower. Current 8th mile best is 136 at 23 psi. McLaren F1, is that a Ford motor? No, it's a BMW motor, actually. What's your opinion of the Amazon aluminum intake manifold? I don't know which one you're talking about for what engine family or any of that. I have a trade policy that will not cover McLaren F1 or similar. Well, it will, but only up to 100,000 pounds of damage. So you wouldn't risk driving one. The Koenigsegg engine is a mod Ford. Yeah. Yep, those are cool. And on that note, it is time to go. Have a happy Christmas, everybody, but I'll be back tomorrow before Christmas.